I'm good at chatting with people. I'm good at connecting with people generally. For a long time, I was kind of floundering, and the best direction I had was, watching Grant Cardone or watching like Andy Elliott or some of those like sales guru coaches on YouTube or whatever. But I never had a framework or a strategy that really resonated with me. On how to connect with potential clients and how to lead them. That all changed when I started training with Julie.
So since last fall, you had closed 2 deals, and last week?
I closed 5.
Hello, and welcome back to yet another episode of Julie 911. Today is going to be very, very interesting because we have Tim Holland, one of the sales executives with Deep Earth. And we're talking today about the sales process and how to go from being good to great. So hi, Tim. Welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So let's start off with, where do you think you were sales-wise, like performance-wise, confidence-wise, skill set wise? Where were you before you started training?
So I've been at this for about 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
I've been mentored by my business partner, Luke Infinger, during that time. And a lot of it was, running the company, managing clients, and not always just strictly sales. But I did have to do a lot of sales. The company needed sales, obviously.
Because you were in a big growth trajectory.
Correct. And for a long time, I'm good at chatting with people. I'm good at connecting with people generally. For a long time, I was kind of floundering, and the best direction I had was, watching Grant Cardone or watching like Andy Elliott or some of those like sales guru coaches on YouTube or whatever, getting a course here or there. But I never had a framework or a strategy that really resonated with me on how to connect with clients, potential clients, and how to lead them. So that's where I started. I would say I've probably closed like 40 high-ticket deals over the course of the first 5 years, and hung on to maybe 25 of those partnerships and lost 15 of them or so, which I consider to be sales too, the retention side of the business.
100%.
That all changed when I started training with Julie, And really what changed the game for me was having her break down calls. We've done a number of different like workshops and seminars and stuff with Julie over the course of the last 6 months, which have been immensely valuable in terms of just broad communication, understanding people, kind of being able to read people better, connect with them, build rapport. But it's sometimes my mind, and maybe yours is the same, is very compartmentalized. So I will learn something about my marriage and not apply it to my job, or vice versa. Learn something about how to communicate with a client and not apply it to my kids or my wife. So what we were able to do is to actually sit down and review calls together about 2 weeks ago. And I closed more deals just the following week. Like it felt like every single deal was closing after that, after about 3 sessions of sitting down with you and going through calls.
Fabulous. And let's be real clear what breaking down a call actually means. So what I make them do is we'll bring up a big screen in the conference room or wherever, and we'll get on a Zoom call together or in person, as the case may be, and somebody will have control over the stop-start on the video recording of the prior call that they were on. And it's pretty common for me to start before we even hit play, just looking at the person that you were dealing with or talking to and getting some kind of a read right off the bat. It's really kind of shocking when you learn what those tells are, how accurate that really ends up being.
It's incredible. I mean, the first one we ever did together, I think Julie paused the video after about literally 2 seconds of the guy.
Probably.
The guy who...
Yep, I remember.
She's like, tell me everything about this guy's life. And I'm like, what? But she was spot on. She was right on with, analyzing that he was a very kinesthetic guy, that he was a feeler. He barely even opened. I mean, it was the most intense sort of kinesthetic personality that I've ever encountered.
So let me just stop and explain for those of you who might not know, because this is really great point. So in this particular video we were working with, the gentleman, who was a super nice guy, just you could tell that right off the bat. But you could also tell a lot about him before he even opened his mouth, just by how he looked. So one of the communication strategies or skills that I teach is this really interesting notion that most people communicate using either a visual referencing, auditory, or kinesthetic. That would be touch and feel. And one of the tip-offs that you're probably working with somebody kinesthetic is that they are typically in very sort of comfortable, loose-fitting clothes, although in this particular case, he was in a three-piece suit, which is also interesting. But it was still sort of maybe not quite fitting right. It was just loose and comfortable. And his hair was kind of loosely combed, and he was kind of sitting, a little bit comfy in the chair. So all of these were just visual tells that this guy's probably kinesthetic in his orientation and his communication style. Knowing someone's communication style is vital to good communication. So in this case, if he's dealing with somebody kinesthetic, the first thing you need to do is slow down, because when kinesthetic people speak, generally, they are very soft-spoken and slow, like literally slower in speaking than, for example, auditory people or visually oriented people, because they're literally feeling what they're saying as they're saying it, like viscerally in their body. So you want to connect with people. You want to sync up with people. So if you're talking to a kinesthetic person and you're talking really fast and describing all this great stuff, that's going to be a complete mismatch.
And actually, this speaks to a bigger point that I've learned over the last couple weeks, and it's something you said chatting with the team yesterday. Connection before information. That is so vital, not only for sales, but for the account managers on the team, for people that are working on the retention, keeping clients happy. It is so easy for somebody like me, and not everybody's like me, but I would imagine if you
nice if they would be, though.
If you run a business or you do high ticket sales, or you have this passion burning inside of you to help people with your system and your thing, it is so easy to make the mistake of brain dumping your thing that you're excited about onto them, and for them to totally miss it. They're going to totally miss it. This is like what I like to call, and I don't know if you're, love him or hate him, but Donald Trump, he never really says much of anything. And it's a very effective form of communication.
Right.
Because, for instance, like one thing, Julie, you taught me directly was whenever you're opening, I do this thing with clients or leads who, I get on a call with them. We have a good connection. So I say, hey, I'm gonna back up a few steps, do some research, put together a plan for you and present it to you. And so when we get on the next call, I say, I have the plan exactly as you wanted it. And the thing about that is, I don't know what the hell they wanted, but they do, right? And so I'm really not saying much of anything, right? And it's just a silly example. I don't know if I've even pulled that out of the bag yet, but it speaks to a very deeper point, a much deeper point, which is that while you're leading the conversation, you have to let them lead, and you have to connect with them on what they're passionate about.
That's the first order of business. The most important thing you need to do if you're talking with a prospect or trying to close a sale is you absolutely, positively have to know what it is they need. What is their problem you're solving? What is the pain that they're in? I teach a sales process that starts with called salting the cut, meaning you've got to know what their problem is specifically. Don't assume anything, because we all know what happens when you assume things. So once you know that they want to 1X their business, or they need to hire somebody else, or they need to clean up their office staff or hire more, whatever it is they're reaching out to you for, that's your leverage. Don't lose it. Once you have that leverage, you salt it or that information, you salt that cut just a little bit, kind of make sure you're both synced up with understanding so they know you get it, what their problem is, right? Then you can go forward to explaining a solution, offering a solution, then explaining it just a little bit. But of course, the process here was that reversed. We completely skipped past the finding out what the heck the problem was and went into massive data dump and information on the solution before they even agreed to be a client,
and
which was very funny to me.
To put a fine point on that, because I am so excited about what you just said and learning that from you directly like 3 weeks ago. I had a sales pitch that was going on and on and on.
Forever. I love you, Tim, but it went on forever.
For like an hour.
Yeah, literally.
And there was like, I don't know, 35 slides or something.
Oh, God.
And it's so interesting because Julie said something that changed my life. She said, and it's simple, but she said, if you have a long list of things that you're trying to offer value about, like 10 things, first of all, people's attention span are like this. Secondly, if I say, hey, this house I'm trying to sell you is in the best part of town, and it has this, and it has that, and it has this nice roof, and it has this nice thing, eventually you're going to be like, why is this guy trying to sell me this house so hard? Like, I was sold on it was in a nice part of town, and it looks nice. So you're devaluing every item in your list, and I was doing it because I think deep down on a subconscious level, I wasn't valuing those things enough myself.
Right.
So she literally said, we got three slides through the presentation of 35 slides. And Julie said, if you do these slides right, this is great.
Close the deal.
And I was like, Julie, click, 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 click. She's like, oh God, no.
Please, no more slides. If you can get them in agreement, and by the way, to do that, you must be in your senses, like really paying attention, watching, listening carefully. All the information you need on what's going on with your sale or potential sale is right there in front of you. If you're in your head wondering, am I doing this right? Did I remember to tell him this? I wonder if he liked that. Should I do this next? You are literally disconnected right off the bat. You can't be in your head. So your anxiety about whether you're doing it right or doing a good job or going to get everything covered or even am I going to make the sale takes away from your ability to do just that. Mm-hmm. So you got in your senses very quickly. That was one of the really fun things about training Tim. So he got this right away, and it was able to make a substantial difference.
It was tremendous. Like you work so hard on these sales where you're trying to pitch somebody to pay you, 40, 60, 90K a year, right? And you get to the end of it and they say no. And it's the most demoralizing thing ever.
Right. Now you know why they said no. So wouldn't you like to know why they say no?
Absolutely.
What was it?
Well, I wasn't connecting with them first.
Right.
I wasn't selling them on the one thing or things that they cared about, the few things that they cared about. I was just dumping, I was just like a bull in a china shop.
Let me explain what Tim was doing. What kind of pizza do you like, Tim?
It's controversial, but I like Hawaiian pizza.
I knew you were going to say. Okay, so Tim likes Hawaiian pizza. But the way he was going about this was he never really found that out. So if I'm playing what he used to do, I'd say, well, I have the most amazing pepperoni and mushroom pizza. I have a fabulous meat-only pizza for meat lovers. I have a Bianco pizza with everything, white sauce and white cheese. I have, I could go through the list of pizzas I have. A barbecue chicken, by the way, is quite good. But it's not Hawaiian. So if I don't really understand what it is he wants, and I'm just giving information I think is great, again, a disconnect.
And let me make this extremely practical. On my discovery call, I would say, okay, I'd love to learn about you guys, and I asked these stupid questions that had nothing to do with their pain. So I'd say, how many team members do you have? And what's your point of sale system, and what's your CRM system right now? Because those items speak to what I'm trying to sell, right? In the old version of me. And so I want to kind of like shove the conversation into the direction, into the box that I want it to be in.
Which was all in your head.
Which was all in my head. Mm-hmm. It was all about me and not what they wanted. If you realize that you can't make progress that way, what you do is you switch it to, hi, why are we on the call today? It's that simple.
Right.
It's like one fun line I have is, why'd you take some time out of your busy day to jump on a call with a stranger on the internet like me? And it's like, well, they're either going to say, no, everything's great. And then it's like, oh, great. Okay, bye. Because that's not the truth. There is a reason why they're on the call.
There's always a reason, but you have to find it.
You have to find it, and then you have to literally be single-minded and stay on that point. And every question you ask has to be around that piece of pain. You solve their cut, right? You don't just try and like find a different problem or whatever. It's not going to connect with them.
Right, because it's what they want most.
Oh, and then I have to say, the beauty of this is you'll work so much less hard.
Oh, that's for sure.
You are a dog and pony. If you're like me, you're a dog and pony show before this, right? And you're like, oh, this slide's going to be great. This slide's going to crush them, After it, you can kind of let your hair down a bit and be like, how can I help you? And you just know in your head, these are the things we do for clients, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to either know whether I can help them or not.
It gives you a whole different perspective, and I've watched you evolve, which has just really been lovely to see. So now Tim really believes he's good at this. Previously, he knew at some level he was good at this, but I think this whole information dump was his way of proving or validating it that didn't need to be done, and often just ended up with a mismatch in communication with the customer. That's really what confidence is believing that, everything's going to be all right because you're going to figure it out, and you are already good at this. Plus, what you do, and this is true of pretty much anybody in sales, you often don't think about the outcome. You could be saving somebody's house. You could be saving somebody's business from going bankrupt. You could be saving somebody from having to go to work for somebody else instead of being an entrepreneur themselves, because he's in a business where they're mostly entrepreneurs. This is huge. I mean, you bring the possibility of you bringing huge value to whoever it is you're talking to is staggering. And it goes way beyond, can I, do this kind of marketing for you or that kind of website for you. The bigger picture is you bring extreme value, and that sets up a whole different energy when you're talking to them.
It does.
It's not about proving you.
Correct.
It's about being extremely generous in what you can provide for them. But it all comes down to that knowing exactly and specifically what their pain, what their problem, what their issue is, and then you leverage that by referencing to it. I don't mean leverage like you're mean with it, but you reference that's the leverage throughout the conversation, and that is your close, is to say, okay, well, if we can fix this, does that work for you?
Yeah.
And of course, how do they say no to that? Mostly they won't.
And you reminded me of one thing that you said probably a while back in one of our group training sessions, which was you're Santa Claus.
You are.
Your goal is to just show up and bring gifts. Mm-hmm. And if you can bring that energy, it's not a specific thing you say, it's a mood. That's
is a mood.
Something you teach. And I love that because it's not a script. It's not, hey, when they say this, you say this. It is a mood. And that mood translates to saying certain things at certain times. So perfect example, the 3-piece suit guy. First, he gets on the call. He's the COO of a $7 million store. It's a big deal, right? It's a big deal for me. Usually I talk to stores that do, 1/3 of that or whatever. And he gets on and he goes, Tim, I was on this 401k call. I tried to get you as fast as I could. I'm sorry I was late. Something like that.
He did. Mm-hmm. I remember.
And my response was, at the time before the training, I said, cool, man. Cool. All right, so. And
this is a man probably 55, 60 that he's saying this to?
Yes. Yeah, cool, man. So the man thing was its own issue, and I'm still working on. I still say man to every male, no matter how old they are.
Well, I gave him permission to say that to anybody under 35.
Julie is looking for moments. They're kind of like opportunities, windows of opportunity to build rapport.
Yes.
When you build rapport and you build that connection, everything's going to be easier. If you don't, it doesn't matter how shiny or beautiful the thing is you're trying to sell. It's not going to work, right? So she taught me. In that moment, she said, pause the video.
Pause.
Right? She said, Tim, what should you say to a man who is being extremely generous by offering a reason and and really trying to justify the reason he was 5 minutes late to the call to you and explaining that and bringing you in.
And having that respect for you.
Right. If you're in it goes back to the mood. If you're in the right mood, you know, of like, my time's extremely valuable. I have this gift to bring. This guy's offering an olive branch of here's why I was late. The answer was, thank you, Ray. I really appreciate you saying that. It can be that simple.
And that brings up the sincerity point. The mood is everything. One of the most important sales skills you can have is to control and be in the right mood. Hugely important. So pretty much any kind of sales situation you want to talk about, the best mood to be in is of a concerned friend. A concerned friend. Because if you get on the phone like it really was a good friend of yours that you're concerned about, everything will be different. People who rely on scripts miss this point. Because if you're a concerned friend and you're in that mood and energy, it doesn't really matter what you say because it's going to be okay. It's the energy of the call. Yeah. And you got that point really well.
Yeah, yeah. So connection first, and then, you know, it really can just flow so much more naturally. And then you just, you know, it just is a beautiful thing. So I also wanted to tell a quick story of the client that one of these people that I closed. I would say maybe this was after the training. This was all I closed like 5 clients last week. It was unbelievable.
By the way, just so they understand, how did that compare to sort of a normal week for you?
I haven't closed more than 2 clients since September in the last 4 months.
2 clients a week, you mean?
No, 2 clients, period.
Oh, I guess I didn't know that.
Now, I will say that, you know,
you've been very busy doing other things.
I run this company, you know, it's in and out, hiring employees and stuff, but that's no excuse.
So since last fall, you had closed 2 deals, and last week?
I closed 5 last week.
Dang, that is good. Okay. I guess I didn't realize that. Okay. But in fairness, you have been very busy with, you know, administrivia and
4 or 5 last week, and very, very minimal.
So what did that do to your mood, to your self-confidence and your self-esteem?
It was incredible because I learned something new, and it felt like and maybe everyone is this way, but the style of learning that I'm getting from you in pause the video, let's talk about this moment, is so much better than a training or something like you. It's so applicable, right? I was talking about those compartmentalizing things. Well, you know, we're applying all of the principles of NLP and everything to exactly what I do, like in the moment. Hey, pause. You should have said this. You could have said this. Here's why. Here's the mood you should be in. So I'm just soaking it in like a sponge, as you can tell.
That's true.
And to see results that quickly, to feel the rapport is the most incredible thing.
Describe how that's different, because a lot of people who are going to be watching this have been in the old mode, let's say, the standard mode you get trained and work with, where it's all about the script, or they're, in their head trying to think what the next thing is or what they're supposed to say, and they have a checklist or, whatever it is, and they're not connecting. Yeah. So how describe how that's different.
So perfect example, and I wanted to go into this a minute ago, is one of these new clients that I closed, I made a mistake. They never really acknowledged that mistake, but it was basically that I believed that we could make this data connection to their sales system, and turns out we couldn't. And I just said, oh, if they can do it, we can do it. It's fine. Turns out it was like a private connection, whatever. So I found that out, and my guy who builds the connection said, you really should be more careful with what you promise in this area. So now there's this elephant in the room. I have to figure out how to jump on with them. So yesterday I got on the phone with them.
And this is a new client.
Brand new.
They
have a 90-day money-back guarantee, so they could easily it could all disappear, right? And more importantly, the connection with them and being able to serve them long-term could disappear. So I get back on the phone with them, and I'm just helping them with some onboarding tasks, and then I'm just honest. I'm like, hey, guys, we are working on that connection. I think there's going to be a way that we can kind of jerry-rig this, but the point of sale system usually is really funny, and they're kind of closed down, so I'm working on calling them. And they're like, okay. And then we just went on to talk about the next time we were going to get on the phone. And the girl mentioned that she's like religious about going to church on Sunday, then doing her workout, then jumping in the cold plunge. And I just light up at the cold plunge. We have a cold plunge here at the office. And I just start connecting with her. And by the end of that call, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to keep this client forever. Yep. Like it was such a
all
deep
about a cold plunge
connection over a cold plunge. And I'm like, they're like, okay, cool. And then I turned it into a positive, and she said, oh, I was working on a separate kind of data connection too. And I said, my guy on my team is going to help you with that because he's working on it for you guys on our end. So you call him up, you ask him anything you want. She's like, okay, great. So to go from one of the biggest foot in my mouth, like in reality, foot in my mouth moments on the back end, turn that into a complete positive and built a connection with them. And I couldn't even see them on the camera. They could see me, but they couldn't turn their camera on. But I'm just listening, and I'm just engaging with them, and I'm just lighting up and, building the connection.
Right. So what you're really talking about is you're describing rapport beautifully. So if you break down the word rapport, you have the spelling of it, which is really all people prefer others resembling themselves. So whether it's talking about a cold plunge or your dog, I have a border collie. You can talk to me about border collies. We'll have instant connection. Or whatever it is. Going to Italy also does that. But whatever it is, you have a sync up immediately. So they will make assumptions because you liked cold plunge, and we're talking about that. They're going to make assumptions about having other kinds of agreement or connection. That's what rapport is. And that's how you can make a really good connection, and of course they feel more comfortable and let their guard down, and you have some real transparent
Everything's easier.
Right.
And so I was compartmentalizing. I learned all this stuff, and thank God it didn't take me a long time to kind of realize, oh my gosh, I should apply this principle here.
No, in fairness, Tim is super fast. He is very, very bright, and he's implementing beautifully.
So I learned all this on the sales side like 3 weeks ago. So it hasn't been that long, but I was not applying it on the fulfillment side with our monthly calls that my partner success coordinators have with our clients. And so they're still data dumping and they're making these calls last forever. And somehow they're getting sucked into longer conversations with clients. And, oh, I have to talk to this client for an hour and a half weekly. And somebody else on my team also talks to them for another hour a week. It's a nightmare situation. We should have a 15 to 30 minute call once a month with all of our clients. And we're we have about 35 clients now. So it's actually, it would suck up all the time if you weren't efficient with this. So I'm learning all this about connection, about keeping it very high level, about speaking to them about what they care about, right? And if I bring on a monthly basis, just as an example, I've got this deck, this reporting deck, and I'm going to walk you through it piece by piece. And here's what your impressions did, and here's what this did, and then now let's go to this. And all you're doing is making everybody's life worse because you're actually giving them opportunities to complain, to find fault. Oh, what about this? If you give them 100 things, they're going to hate 3 of them, and that's all they're going to talk about, the 3 things they hate. So instead, Julie came back in. I'm like, she had offered, so I was very thankful to have her come in and actually talk to my team. And I didn't know the way this conversation would go, but we did this yesterday. And we come to find out after about an hour and a half of talking that I have a system where I'm forcing my team members to make the same mistakes on the fulfillment side that I was making on the sales side.
Right.
So we totally scrapped that, totally restructured it. And now we're going to do, you had said 6 big picture wins that is sent in an email the day before the call. Then you can get on the call, and it's basically like debrief.
10 minutes.
Tell me what you need from us. If there is a need for a strategic conversation about an upcoming event or something, you have time for that. You're future pacing. You're getting them excited about the future. You're not getting stuck in the weeds. And if you don't go through all this stuff, they're not going to complain about it. And if they care, then go through it. But wait for them to ask you.
Right.
What they need.
Again, this is such a simple concept, but it's so powerful. It needs to be about them, not what we think or what we have on our head or how we think it ought to go. It needs to be according to them. And not everybody wants all that data. People are really busy. I suggested that he have 3 bullet points when he's doing anything Well, we had made several changes in the thinking. One is don't send out an email with gobs and gobs of information. Have 3 bullet points because, frankly, after the third bullet point, nobody's paying attention. Well, none of us do. Secondly, talk to them instead of emailing. If you have a chance, talk to them. They were in a pattern or a habit of emailing vast amounts of data and information and
getting stuck.
So everything was very procedural. The way they talked to clients, the way they responded to clients was very, very procedural. We want to make it intimate. We want to make it professional, but connected.
Perfect example. My best client that pays us many thousands of dollars a month, I go over numbers with them exactly 1 time per year.
There you go.
The reason that is the case, and we do a ton of work behind the scenes, the reason that's the case is because there is trust,
right,
and an intimate connection, and they've had us over to their house, and they know the names of our kids, and there's a working relationship, and they're busy people. They're business owners. They don't care. As long as the door's ringing and people are buying more product, then they don't care. So it's really, the moral of the story is I'm so excited about all this, not just because I can make money or make deals. I can do better for them. That's important to me. I can make it easier on us. It truly is. Oftentimes, it's like that work smarter, not harder. That's kind of what I'm learning.
Well, and for anybody who's out there doing what you're doing, like building up a new business, there are so many time sucks, so many things that grab attention and suck up time in the day. To work efficiently is such a relief. It's such a relief. Because I know at one point before we started this, you were pretty darn stressed.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. So what's your stress level like now? Because you still got a million things to do,
I think we're getting to a better place. I would say that because I just hired somebody and training them and everything, it's starting to feel like, okay, we can manage the workload. It's just now starting to feel like that, But the biggest thing is, because we literally just implemented this, literally yesterday, I think that in this next month, I'll be able to really report that my account managers are not stressed anymore like they were, because they're constantly on the phone. I'm like, why is this person on the phone for an hour and a half with this client again? And a lot of that is on us. A lot of that is our fault. It's look in the mirror, figure out what you need to change about you. The other thing I really wanted to speak about was what you said about caring for others first. I had to get a spanking on this when we first started really doing the call reviews, because I said, Julie.
Oh, the whale.
I got this big fish. I got this whale.
Oh, I went nuts.
That's all I said.
Yep.
That's all I said.
And tell him what I did.
So she said, stop.
See, you should know. No, I said, what did you say? That's really, yeah. I was on Zoom, thankfully, because if he would have been in front of me, I would have smacked him upside the head.
Yeah. So I'm like, hey, it's this big fish. And I think she saw the greed in my eyes. She saw the dollar signs in my eyes. And this really speaks to the true nature of sales and what it is, and service and what it is, and a business, really. One of my favorite coaches, mentors, Brian Tracy, says you should always provide 10 times the amount of value than what you are charging them. And what that is absolute service first. It's when you go to bed at night, when you wake up in the morning, you should be thinking not about the Porsche that as I have been guilty of, that I'm going to buy this new car with all this money that I can make from these people that I'm going to. It's so self-centered when you think about it. It really is so self-centered. And it's limiting you. This is basically straight from the horse's mouth. I'm quoting Julie verbatim. You are limiting your ability to actually make money. You're leaving money on the table, she said, and you're never going to be the sales superstar that you could be. A sales superstar is driven with connection and empathy and care and selflessness, basically. So think about this. And all of this is just spilling out of me because you literally put it into me. So it's just fun to share all this.
It is.
But think about how they feel for a moment. Put yourself in their shoes.
All the time. Think about how they feel.
Yeah.
All the time.
All the time. Start now.
That's the point.
If you come to the table and you're like, hey, I need you to sign this deal and blah, blah, blah. And here's like my close was so bad. It was so bad. Like up to 3 weeks ago, it was so bad. It's hilarious. I'm like, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to do your email marketing. We're going to do your ads and stuff. And then I go to the pricing slide and be like, and it's $54.50 a month. And then I would just shut up, which is like me at the end of the whole. So you could speak to that or I could speak to it, but it was totally self-centered.
Right.
It was self-centered.
Well, it's a great point and an important one. So as we're talking about empathy and connection and being able to match and pace and whether they're visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and a bunch of other things you can notice about somebody, the bottom line is if you're really good at this, the sales superstars really have no awareness of themselves. They don't. Their focus and awareness is so much on the other person. They're seeing everything through their client's eyes. They're feeling what the client is feeling. They're anticipating. So if you get in rapport with somebody at that level and you have that energy connection, you're able to anticipate things like they might have a price objection or they might have a timing objection or they might have whatever, that might be an issue where they can close it. It has to be about that connection and your awareness has to be on them. Mm-hmm. And I would just ask Tim, so you've been in a couple of my 3 or 4 day trainings and we've worked together one-on-one and now with your team. How much of that time have I spent talking about me?
None.
Right.
Maybe Italy, the dogs. Well, that's about
and
it.
That's it. Like, boof, that's it. And that, by the way, is partially rapport because you start mentioning dogs, anybody with dogs, And But the point is, it's not about me. It's about you guys. Mm-hmm. And if you start and end with that idea that focus and awareness is on them, you're able to see so much more and anticipate so much more. So you can guide and lead the conversation, and that's how you make more sales. It's just as simple as that. But again, if you're in your head thinking, am I doing this right? Is this okay? What do I need to do next?
Another perfect example yesterday, I got on with a guy who just does online stuff, and we usually work with retailers. And so one of the first things out of my mouth was, hey, Armin, I enjoyed talking to you. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I basically said, honestly, I really don't know if we can work. I really don't know if I can help you. And then I started to ask a couple more probing questions, and I realized as he was explaining it that maybe we can help him with our software specifically because I found an issue that we could actually solve, an issue that we could actually help with.
Ding, ding. So that's that key piece of information. You cannot go forward in a conversation, never mind a relationship, unless you know. It is, what is their pain? What is their problem? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So you uncovered something you weren't anticipating. So if you had just gone in with what was in your head, you would have blown this off.
Exactly.
And missed the opportunity.
But yeah, and that's absolutely true. Also, I was just being myself and I was being real.
Relaxed.
And I wasn't trying to get the deal. I really wasn't.
Right.
I talked to Luke before. I'm like, hey, do you think we could help this guy? He's like, sounds like a headache. Probably not. And that's the reality. You can't always help everybody. So I went in like saying, yeah, I nice conversation, nice guy, but I'm really not sure we can help you. And it evolved naturally. There was so much rapport in that conversation. And then at the end, I'm tempted to say this or not say it, but I basically pitched the guy on a software that we would usually sell for $500 a month in a more customized fashion for $3,000 a month. And he loved it.
Well, there you go.
And so it literally is like 6 clients worth of a client. If I was the old selfish version of myself, it's like, ooh, money, money, money. But all I did was, it's kind of like in the Bible, Jesus says, seek first the kingdom of heaven and all these things will be added to you. If you're looking at the things themselves, it's like, for some reason, there's this weird law in the universe that you can't quite grab onto exactly what you're, it's okay to want to have a better life for you and your family.
You bet. But that comes as a result of what you put out.
Right. If I were to ask you right now, whoever's watching this, what do? You wouldn't answer me by saying, I make money by being, a server or being a barista or running a company. You wouldn't be like, I make money for myself by. That's not the purpose, the written purpose of what you do. What you do is the thing you actually do, which is to serve. Every business is just serving somebody else. That's how business works. And so it's the funniest, simplest point ever. But what do? We help retail stores grow their revenue. So if my driven purpose in my heart, the first priority must be the thing I actually do. It must be to help these stores grow. And if I'm driven by that, all of the accolades and the money and the connections.
Everything comes. But it's just like a faucet. It doesn't come if you don't have that perspective. And that's the big thing. Wow, what good stories.
Because, and you said this, when I said the big fish, you said, it's a small point, but they will smell it.
Oh, yeah. You can't. There's certain things there's actually quite a lot you can't hide in your own energy and your own perception, which is why your mood, getting back to that, is so fundamental to having a successful call or hooking up with that. Concerned friend would never call their friend a fish, a big fish, or because that suggests so many negative things. But you went into it with him in a really beautiful way after you knew what you were doing, and they responded fabulously and signed right away.
Big deal.
Very big deal.
One more thing is I took that energy of like really slowing down and trying to find that little pocket of connection or whatever. So the COO passed me on to the CEO. So it was a whole new conversation before I was able to close that deal. And the CEO is extremely busy and bouncing around. And same sort of thing happened. He blew me off a couple times. I was being very distant and letting him come to me. And then eventually it worked. And then the day of, okay, let's make this thing happen. Let's talk at 2. It's 2. And I'm like, hey, I'm on the call. And he's like, oh, I got this deal, whatever. I can't jump on right now. And so he's like, when, maybe it'll be 30 minutes. I'm like, just tell me when you're truly ready to jump on. And I had to play a little hardball. So eventually he gets on the call. We set it up for like 4. And he gets on. He's like, hey, Tim, I had this big deal. It went long, but it was a deal. Maybe something along those lines. And I said, thank you, Sonny. I really appreciate you saying that. And what that did is made him apologize way harder right after I said that. So he said, look, I know it's money, but I didn't mean in any way to devalue your time. And it totally switched this power dynamic to where he showed me so much respect after I took the opportunity to
show
just
him
get
respect.
real and say, I really appreciate that apology. It was like, it's real to me. And then he said, I didn't mean in any way to devalue your time, and I know time is precious, and I know you've given me this time. So it built this incredible working relationship, just that exact moment of finding that moment to capitalize on the rapport.
And you were in your senses and prepared for it because you were in the right mood to start with. Yeah. And so it seems like a kind of a small thing to be empathetic and kind and respectful, but most of the time, not always, because we have met human beings, but most of the time it works out really well.
Think about outside of business for a moment. Think about love. Think about friendship. You don't make friends with somebody over the course of 3 or 4 or 5 months. You make friends with somebody in an instant.
Right away. Yeah.
You build a love relationship with your future spouse pretty much in an instant. It's like, hey, it's nice to meet you, and it's so good to see you, and oh, you look great. And it's just those little things of finding that moment, and then it's like, boom, you're locked in.
That's a great point, because everything we've been talking about doing, you do instinctively and naturally when you meet somebody special. Like if you're really in attraction with someone and they're in attraction with you, there's all kind of things happening that are just natural. You don't even think about it. You're just doing them. One of them is you're very much in your senses. Very much in your senses. If you're really into it, right? So we have these skills. It's just that you have to, learn how to apply them in different areas. But that's an excellent point, because all the things you do when you're meeting somebody you're attracted to are the same.
Yeah. So imagine, I guess I I could sum all this up in a nice bow and say, if you do something like me, and everybody is in sales, imagine if you could do that and have nice, fun conversations with people for your job instead of combative, stressed out, like, you guys got to sign by this date, or whatever, where it's very selfish and it's stressy, and then you're like, I got him, I got the fish, I got it, I got the deal, look at me. And ultimately, you're actually not very happy doing that. Imagine if instead you could come to work and whether you're, client facing or fulfillment or customer service or a barista or a high ticket sales closer, whatever, you are having fun because you're building friendships and connections with people, even if they say no, because they're like, I had a client that said no that last week as well. A lead that said no. You know what also they said? I said, guys, I'm bending over backwards for you to make this. And they said, Tim, we know you are. We know you are. And I almost texted them like, I love you guys. Like, I'm like, I am disappointed. You said yes. You backed out for no reason. You're stuck in the fear of having of change versus what you should be having is a little bit of fear of the status quo because you're stuck, and you admitted that. And your other companies admitted that they didn't prioritize you or whatever. And it was just such a good connection with them, even though they said no. I'll probably close them in 6 months. Like,
probably. And really, that's a great point. If you have set the intention to leave every conversation good, like leave it in a good place, whether you got the business or not, ultimately the universe just rewards that. I don't know how it works, but it does. And the last thing I'm going to end with is, if you think about what fun it would be to go to work every day and all you do is talk to your good friends. Wouldn't that be a blast? Just all you have to do all day long is talk to your best friends. That's kind of what it should feel like. And you can put yourself in that mood. And we will close with that, with my very big thank you for all your insights today. And again, you've done a great job. I'm very, very proud of you. And I think you had some really interesting things to say to everyone. So,
well, thank you, Julie. Really appreciate you.
You bet. We'll see you next time.